Senator Roberts. Yep.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again for being here. I love your tie, Dr. Marshall.
It's a company tie, Senator, from the Pawsey supercomputer.
Which company?
The Pawsey supercomputer in West Australia.
Not CSIRO. Okay. I want to recap first, Dr. Mayfield. These questions are to you. You can see the graphs there. In 2009, after the global financial crisis in 2008, and in 2020 during the COVID lockdowns, we experienced severe global recessions, almost a depression. Energy use fell dramatically, and so did our human use of hydrocarbon fuels, coal, oil and natural gas, for transport, residential and industry purposes. That led to dramatic reductions of carbon dioxide from human activity. Yet despite cuts in human carbon dioxide production, dramatic cuts in human carbon dioxide output, atmospheric carbon dioxide levels continued rising, as you see. On 29th of October 2019, in response to my question about the severe recessions in 2009, causing severe cuts in hydrocarbon fuel usage, you said there were, the transcript here, there were inflection points in the graphs of atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. I've patiently waited almost 3 years, giving you a chance for the inflections to appear. The graphs show no inflections. Could you please, on notice, specify the dates, duration, and quantify the extent of the inflections you claim? Or to regain some trust, admit your error. Trust is important to me, Dr. Mayfield, yet you have betrayed our trust in you and CSIRO. There are no inflections there, but I leave it open to you with the question on notice.
Well, Senator, all due respect.
Senator Roberts, I think you made a statement there that I really need to give Dr. Marshall a chance to respond to. I'll give you more time, but I
said my trust in him is gone.
Well, I'm going to give
Dr. Marshall... he was untrusting.
I'll give you more time, but I'm going to give Dr. Marshall a chance to respond.
Yeah, I mean, come on, Senator. I'm sure you've met Dr. Mayfield many times. I'm sure you know he wouldn't deliberately betray your trust. I don't think you meant that, did you?
Trust combines two things: competency and integrity. An honest doctor with good integrity who's incompetent, I don't trust. An incompetent doctor who I don't trust.
No, Senator Roberts. Senator Roberts, you really can't make those statements. It's reflecting negatively on a witness who's given their time to us today. I'd like to leave it there. I have given Dr. Marshall a brief chance to respond, and I'd ask you to take another direction. Senator Roberts.
Okay, I'll just go back to my question on notice.
Senator, I can respond to the question about inflections, though, if that's helpful.
I would like you to specify the dates, duration and quantify the extent of the inflections that Dr. Mayfield claims.
Sure. I think this will help, Senator. Something I prepared earlier. So this is a chart of the Earth's temperature over pretty much since the beginning. A lot of inflections.
Useful function here. Dr. Marshall, I'm afraid that even though you are trying to assist the committee, we're unable to use what's described in the standing order as props.
Okay, sorry.
So you'll have to put that down and speak to it.
All right. Sorry, but the inflections are on that chart.
That's a graph of temperature.
I can give it to you, Senator, after the session, if that's helpful.
I'd like you to again specify the dates of the inflections, the duration of the inflections, and quantify the extent of the inflections that Dr. Mayfield claimed.
Certainly, Senator.
Thank you. Second question. In Senate estimates hearings of 2019, I lowered the bar for CSIRO, asking you to simply provide the specific empirical scientific evidence, the logical scientific points, identifying a statistically significant change in climate, any climate factor, and to specify that change and specify the statistical analysis methods and data. In response, Dr. Mayfield immediately held up what he said was a copy of one of CSIRO's previous slide presentations to me and claimed it was in there. My colleagues and I have reviewed both CSIRO documents, both the presentations, and found neither document identifies any statistically significant change in climate and specifies nothing like that kind. Neither specifies any such changes, nor the statistical analysis methods and data, nor the sources. That's what I requested. Dr. Mayfield was wrong. So my question now is, Dr. Marshall, on notice, please identify in the CSIRO presentations, both of them, the specific empirical scientific evidence identifying a statistically significant change in climate, specifying that change, and identifying the statistical analysis methods and data. Please specify its location, within the CSIRO presentation. When I say significant change in climate, I mean change in climate process. Could be a change in temperature, atmospheric temperature, ocean temperature, storm severity, frequency, duration, flooding, frequency, duration. Any statistically significant change to the climate processes.
And Senator, if we explain this data here, which is ours and BOM's, is that what you want? Explanation of that? It's ocean temperature that we've measured for about 80 years, and then terrestrial temperature, which BOM has measured.
I'll leave it to you to submit what you think. I've given you the specifications, what I request.
We can definitely table this, Senator, if that's helpful.
So, well, I'd like you to give me an answer to what... I asked you the question. What I would like, Dr. Marshall, I'll say it again, identify the specific empirical scientific evidence identifying a statistically significant change in climate, any climate factor, specify what the change is, and specify the statistical analysis methods and data, and please specify its location within CSIRO's presentations.
So, Senator, if I can refer you back to the State of the Climate, the most recent one is 2022. I know you don't like it, I know you don't agree with it. There was a lot of evidence sitting in there, and that's what I would table.
Okay, I'll say it again. I want you to identify the specific empirical scientific evidence that identifies
Senator
a statistically significant
Senator
change
Roberts,
in climate.
there is a standing order in relation to repetitive questions, and I just wanted to clarify. I just wanted to clarify whether you'd put that on notice. You were seeking to put. Yeah, okay. Yes. So I think the Hansard will record that, and we can move to the next question.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to move to FullCam. Is it accurate to say that FullCam, which estimates carbon sequestration from human-induced regeneration of trees, is an essential model used in calculating carbon dioxide credits?
Yes, Senator, that's correct.
Thank you, Dr. Mayfield. Is it true that you have admitted that FullCam systematically overestimates sequestration in areas of pre-existing vegetation?
So, Senator, you'd be familiar again, I mentioned it earlier, but the Chubb review for Australian carbon credit units, as part of that they looked at human-induced regeneration, and they also looked at the FullCam model. We've also been reviewing that. In the time period for where those ACCUs apply, we believe that it's broadly a very good representation. There's always opportunity to improve these models as time goes by, but it's a robust model to use at this point in time and will continue to be used. And that was the findings of the independent review there.
We're relying on an email from Karen Paul to Andrew McIntosh on the 12th of October 2021 from a Freedom of Information documents, and says that CSIRO admits that FullCam systematically overestimates sequestration in areas of pre-existing vegetation.
So in terms of context there, that's referring to out years well beyond 25 years. And it has been reviewed by Professor Chubb, who's a former Australian Chief Scientist.
I know who he is.
And his panel. And they were very comfortable that that model was doing the job that was intended for at this point in time. As with all of our models, we constantly improve those as we get better scientific information and hone them. But we're very comfortable with what it does and the job it performs, and I disagree with your earlier statement. Okay,
thank you. We'll pursue that further. GenCost, let's go to GenCost. GenCost 22 assumes capacity factors of 40% for wind and 26% for solar. For financial year 2022, the national electricity market capacity factors were actually 29% compared to your assumed 40% for wind and 19% compared to your assumed 26% for solar. Those are significant differences. Your assumed capacity for wind is 50% higher than the actual history on the national electricity market. These are huge margins of error when we need very precise generation for our energy market. Why are you so optimistic about the capacity factors compared to real-world data?
So, Senator, again, I just refer to the answer that Mr Graham gave recently to the other senator. We're looking, there's a couple of different applications, and we look at a range there from what would be called average performance to best performance. So we're looking at what can happen in different locations and different conditions.
But the average grossly overstates.
I can get Mr Graham to walk through the numbers he talked about before again, but that's how we're looking at the data that's there in the NEM, actually lived data, same stuff that you're looking at. So we're trying to sort of put that to work in terms of understanding the range of costs, because you get different capacity factor in different locations around Australia.
I understand that, but the average overall is 50% higher. Your assumed capacity for wind is 50% higher than the actual history on the national electricity market. Your assumed is higher than the actual.
So I think it's probably useful to clarify. We don't provide an average capacity factor in GenCost. We provide a range, and that range is meant to represent what would be the likely range for a new project. So we're not trying to say that range, or even the midpoint of that range, I'm not trying to say that is the historical range for that technology. That's not what we're saying, and we don't say that anywhere in the GenCost report. I can tell you that we tend, for all new projects, we tend to point to capacity factors that are somewhere around the average to higher level, because we have an assumption that if people bring a new project to market, it'll probably do a bit better. It probably won't be at the lower end of the range, for example. Having said that, the direction of your question is a line of questioning that we've had through the recent consultation process, which we run each year. And as part of the final GenCost report, we'll be going into this in a lot more detail, so some of these misunderstandings might be clarified in that final report for you.
I may be wrong here, but from memory, the last Senate estimate session, you were asked the question about why the capacity factors are so much higher than actual, and you said, well, for solar, it's because we expect it's early on their development curve, and there'll be much more capacity for improvement in the future. You said not so much for wind. Now you're telling me there's a 50% improvement for wind?
I think, Senator, you're confusing learning rates with capacity factors there.
No, I'm assuming learning rates.
Senator Roberts, I do need to share...
These are assumed capacity factors. That's what you're telling me.
Senator Roberts, I do need to share the call. Do you have a final question?
That'll do. I'll come back to the rest. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Senator Roberts.
Thank you.
Senator Roberts, you have the call.
Okay. Coming back to FullCam, Dr. Mayfield, you mentioned about Professor Chubb. Let me just ask categorically, is there a specific overestimation of carbon dioxide sequestration in areas of pre-existing vegetation?
So, Senator, just bear with me for 2 seconds. We understand as you get into the far out years, there is a very small overestimation, but it's in long terms and it's not overly influenced by the level of vegetation. The model actually takes that into account as a starting input. So, if there's no vegetation already there, the model doesn't allow additional vegetation. If it's under-vegetated, then it can. Yeah.
So it doesn't allow for vegetated land?
The model is quite sophisticated in understanding different landscapes and the level of pre-existing vegetation, and then tries to project forward as to what could become that vegetation over time. So it's trying to take all those factors into account, and you can imagine different landscapes have different rates of growth and things like that. So that's what the model's doing, and ultimately, the review that we've done of the model says that in the time period where it's relevant, which is 0 to 25 years, we think it does a reasonably good job of representing that, and there's no major overestimation.
So there is an overestimation, but it's not a major one?
It's small, but it's within acceptable bounds, and it only happens in the very far out years. So in the model, aware of that.
So in the model which underpins carbon dioxide credits, there is a systematic error which overestimates the amount of sequestration in some types of land cover. That means that the companies locking up land to make money out of this market will be making more money than they should.
So again, if I come back to what I said before, any sort of limitations of the model appear a long way out into the 20 plus years. most of the work is done before that in terms of getting the credit. So we're very comfortable, and that's the work that the Chubb panel did, is saying that that model is broadly fit for purpose and
broadly
will
fit for
continue to be
purpose.
used. Yeah.
Okay. So we don't actually measure the carbon dioxide sequestered. It's modelled based on assessments, and I'll come back to you next Senate estimates on my understanding of, I can't recall it in detail now, of the way carbon dioxide is calculated, not measured, calculated. But I'll come back to you on that. This idea of sequestering and trading carbon dioxide credits is one of the greatest scams ever pulled in this country. So let's move back to my initial question. You tabled these, Dr. Marshall?
Yes, Senator.
They don't answer my question.
I'm sorry,
At
Senator.
all.
I thought they did.
Well, I'm seriously disturbed now. Seriously disturbed about what you're saying. Because if you don't understand that is not an answer to my question, then you don't understand science. You don't understand English.
Senator Roberts, I'll just pause you there for procedural reasons. I neglected to formally table the graphs that you're referring to that were tabled by CSIRO, and I will do that. The committee also tables the graphs that you circulated earlier formally as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Dr. Marshall, I asked for inflection points after 2009 and 2020. The graph only goes to 2010.
Senator, all due respect, I was answering the question you asked after that, which was, do you have any data showing a change in the temperature? The graph I showed up, the big one, shows the inflection points.
I would like you to specify the dates, duration, and quantify the extent of the inflections that Dr. Mayfield claims.
Sure. I think this will help, Senator. Something I prepared earlier. So this is a chart of the Earth's temperature over pretty much since the beginning. A lot of inflections.
Dr. Marshall, Dr. Marshall, I'm afraid that even though you are trying to assist the committee, we're unable to use what's described in the standing order as props.
Okay, sorry.
So you'll have to put that down and speak to it.
All right. Sorry, but the inflections are on that chart.
That's a graph of temperature.
I can give it to you, Senator, after the session if that's helpful.
Any statistically significant change to the climate processes?
And Senator, if we explain this data here, which is ours and BOM's, is that what you want? Explanation of that?
The graph.
It's ocean temperature that we've measured for about 80 years, and then terrestrial temperature, which BOM has measured.
I'll leave it to you to submit what you think. I've given you the specifications, what I request.
We can definitely table this, Senator, if that's helpful. Yeah. So that's the atmospheric carbon dioxide, and the other graph is the rise in water temperature, which we measure, and the rise in land temperature, which the BOM measures.
Dr. Mayfield was talking about inflections in the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now you're giving me sea temperatures as evidence of carbon dioxide inflections?
Senator,
I asked for specific inflections of carbon dioxide in the record.
Correct, and then you asked me for evidence that there had been a change in the climate, which I said I would give you, and that is the evidence. That was the second question you asked.
I asked you on notice to identify the specific empirical scientific evidence identifying a statistically significant change in climate, specifying that change. I want to know exactly what the change is you're claiming, and specifying the statistical analysis methods and data. And please specify its location within either of the CSIRO presentations. Is that clear?
It is, Senator, and those two graphs are the data.
Where is the statistical analysis methods and data?
Well, the data is on those two graphs, and we can provide you the analysis methods if you want, but
that's what I wanted.
Senator Roberts,
the data.
This question has been taken on notice multiple times, and I'd ask you to ask different questions.
And I'm
please.
making it clear to Dr. Marshall that it has not answered the question.
Because it's been taken on notice.
Yes, thank you. Are you aware of the term logical fallacies?
I think I've heard you use that term before, Senator.
Other than me using it, you're not aware of it?
I've heard you use it, but I don't think I've heard anyone else use it, Senator. No.
I don't think I've used it in Senate estimates.
Oh, okay.
But you've never heard of the term logical fallacies?
Only from when you've used it, Senator, yeah.
Appeals to authority, that's a logical fallacy.
Right.
There are many logical fallacies. They're purporting science when they don't purport science.
Is it like
we're logging logical fallacies in your statements in Senate estimates? You've made a number of them. Are you aware of that?
I'm not, Senator.
Okay. We look forward to another conversation on that. Could I ask a question on... here it is. Here. Gen cost 22. Can I please confirm the capacity factor you have used for black coal is in Gen cost 22 for the levelised cost of electricity? I've got 60 to 80%. Was this capacity factor based on the national electricity market history?
I can confirm that's the range of capacity factors which we use for black coal.
Okay. Wind and solar are given preferential dispatch in the national electricity market, meaning that black coal never operates at its full capacity because it is artificially stopped from putting power into the grid while wind and solar are favoured. So the capacity factor of coal in the national electricity market is far from its actual potential. Using the national electricity market history for a capacity factor calculation is a breach of Gen cost 22 new build methodology, as I understand it. You are meant to assess the capacity factor based on the technical capability, not the national electricity market history. Why did you break the new build methodology for the coal capacity factor?
We don't talk, and I'm not aware of the new build methodology in Gen cost report.
Thank you. In the Gen cost 22 section on firming ratios, why have you not incorporated the cost of firming that is currently present in the grid as part of this cost for solar and wind?
One of the things we most definitely do in Gen cost is take account of the integration cost of renewables.
Including firming?
Firming is not a term that I use because other people use it and it can mean many different things. We use the term integration costs, and in our view that means anything that's needed to make sure that when you introduce renewables you can still deliver reliable electricity.
And synchronised power?
I'm not an engineer. Some of the modelling that we do includes consideration of inertia and system strength, but I can't describe those things to you with any expertise.
Gen cost 22, I'm told, estimates a 20 to 34% firming ratio required for wind and solar. Yet CSIRO's own 2017 low emissions technology roadmap, there's another nice collection of buzzwords, 2017 low emissions technology roadmap concluded that a 30% firming ratio was required for 67% wind and solar penetration and a 75% ratio for 90% wind and solar penetration. How was the Gen cost 22 20 to 34% result reached when it completely contradicts the CSIRO's previous research on this matter?
The low emissions technology roadmap was researched from, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago, and
6 years ago, by the look at it.
Right, and we used an older model which didn't allow any trading between states and didn't include the role of things like peaking gas and other technologies. What we've learned since is we've designed a model that can particularly capture all the things that support renewable generation, and what we found is that you need a much lower ratio of storage than we initially found in that older research. And when we have newer research that has better methodologies and more accurate answers, that's what we tend to rely on. So that's what we're using for Gen cost.
Coming back
Senator
to the...
Roberts, you've had a 10-minute block there. I need to share the call. We're running out of time for this session, and I'm going to Senator Pocock. Senator Pocock.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. The conceptual penis as a social construct. Conceptual penis. They claim that penises cause climate change. Penises cause climate change. Penises cause